Okay, we're ready.
Okay, afternoon, everyone. Um, I it's been requested of me to go over how to exclude a listing from the MLS, and it actually is slightly different depending on what MLS you use, but uh, the forms are the same. So it all starts with your listing agreement. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to open up zip forms and we're going to look at forms. So let's I'm going to move this out of my way. Sorry. Um, let's look at the listing agreements. Okay. So here is the listing agreement. We're going to go straight to the agreement, and I'm only going to highlight what needs to be done on the listing agreement in order to exclude it, because there is one area, and it is it is item number 7D, and seller instructs broker to market the property to the public. No, that's not what I want. What is exclude? Well, let's back up. Sorry, and let's talk about the MLS, about what excluding it means. If you exclude a listing from the MLS, what that means is that that property can only be marketed within your brokerage. And your brokerage is your individual office. Even though I am the broker for 4 different offices, that it is only able to be marketed to your individual office, because each of these offices have their own corporation and own their own DRE number. So you can't market it to South Bay can't market it to West Side, or West Side to Calabasas. It can't be done. And that is part of clear cooperation. So if you are excluding from the MLS, then your seller needs to be aware that it can only be marketed within your own office, and that needs to be made clear. Um, and by marketing, it also means a sign. You can't publicly market it, because once it's publicly marketed, it has to go into the MLS. So that's another thing that you need to be aware of. You can't put a sign on it. You can only market it within your own individual office, because you can't do any Facebook posts. Even if you don't put the address, I had somebody today, I'm not identifying it. They don't know what the address is. It doesn't matter. The MLS, I know that ChrisNet will come after the agent and say, is this property, is there a listing agreement, and is it in the MLS? And you say, well, I excluded it, but you're publicly marketing it. So if you public market something that is excluded, then within 1 business day, that property has to be put in to the MLS, either as a coming soon or as a active listing. So just be aware of that. So, and that's what all of this is saying. This section S about the benefits of putting it out of the MLS, because it is a wider, you reach a wider group of people. I'm just looking for, oh, right here, 7D2, seller instructs broker not to market the property to the public. seller understands that no public marketing will occur, and the scope of marketing that will occur will consist only of direct one-on-one promotion between the broker and the licensees affiliated with the listing brokerage and their respective clients. What does a client mean? You know, you can market it. If it's excluded, you can market it to the agents in your office and their clients. Does that mean it's somebody, when we were doing open houses, that you just met through an open house, that you were put on a drip system? No. You have to have a substantial relationship with that person. And CRMLS requires that you have an agency disclosure, a signed agency disclosure. CRISNet requires that, and also the MLS, which is CLAW, requires that you have had either a former listing, a former lease, a former offer written, some sort of thing that shows a substantial relationship. So if you're going to exclude it, you check this box, and what that's going to do, it's going to generate the form to exclude it. And that's the next thing we're going to go over. So I'm going to go back here, and we're not going to show it. And I'm looking to see if we have any questions yet before I move on to the actual form that you need in order to exclude it. I'm not seeing anything. So I'm going to go to the next form. And in order to exclude it, you need to do the SELM, seller instruction to exclude listing from the multiple listing service and days on market. So this is what you need to have your seller sign in order to exclude it. So basically, it's an agreement. It's an addendum to the listing agreement. The date, this should be done on the day that that your listing agreement starts. Same day. You can't have a listing agreement and then go back and do an SELM days later. They need to go and they need to coincide. So if you're excluding it, then it needs to be done from the start of the listing. So it's just the property address, the seller, and then the brokerage. It's not you as the individual agent, it's the brokerage. So whatever office you're in, that's the name of the brokerage goes there. You put in your multiple listing service, if it's CRMLS or it's CRISNet or it's the MLS, that will go there. And then we go over the same things that are in the listing agreement, the benefits of using the MLS and the impact of opting out. It's a reduction of exposure, all of that. So mandatory submission to the MLS, clear cooperation. All these rules are coming out of clear cooperation, which back in May of 2020 was instituted by all MLSs. You are not going to check this, that it does not require, because all of the MLSs that I'm talking about do require you to put its mandatory submission is a part of it, a part clear cooperation. They have all adopted clear cooperation, and clear cooperation, once again, is within 1 business day of publicly marketing a property, that property must go in. Must. It's not whether you feel like it or not. It must go in the MLS. And you, as a member of whatever MLS that you belong, you have to adhere to those rules. So because you sign a little paper that you will adhere to them. And if you don't, you're subject to violation. Now, violations for violating clear cooperation vary MLS to MLS. CRMLS, they give you, I think it's up to $3,500 maybe, a violation. I think it's 1% of the list price up to $3,500. CRISNet, which is the Valley, they are up to $15,000. So 1% of the list price, up to $15,000 for violating clear cooperation. So it's, you know, it's pretty steep there. So the MLS, I think they're around the $3,500 range too. So just so you know, but it's a fine, it's a violation. So you don't want to do that. So mandatory submission. So as I said, within 1 business day of publicly marketing, it needs to, you need to put that in the MLS. If you don't publicly market it, if you haven't marketed it, there is still a mandatory submission to put it into the MLS unless you exclude it. So if you don't public market something, you have 2 business days to put in the MLS. Meaning if your listing starts today, you have 2 business days in order to put it into the MLS. Now, if you don't put it in the MLS within those 2 days, you're going to get a violation for mandatory submission. It's not a violation against clear cooperation. It's just against mandatory submission. So just be aware of that. You have 2 days to put it into the MLS if you haven't marketed it. So that's that. So then here we go into the grit of the agreement here. So you have 3 choices. You can exclude it for X amount of days. So that's number 1, for a period of X calendar days, 30 calendar days, 15 calendar days, whatever. Or you can exclude it until a date, up until a date, specific date, or you can do it for the entire listing period. So if you do it for the entire listing period, do you have to adhere to that? Do you have to, is that law? You can never go against that? No, you can always change it. All you have to do is do a modification of listing and say that the seller property to be put onto the MLS such and such a date, and have the seller sign it. Always can be changed. Deborah, I think there's a question.
There is, yes. What if you sell, and you've answered a little bit of this, but what if you sell the property before the beginning date of your listing agreement, before even putting it on the MLS?
If you sell the property before the listing date.
So I think, are they, let's see, who is it? Parnian? If they're asking, do you have to put it in the MLS? I'm not sure if that's what the question.
Well,
sell it before
you could always put something in the MLS sold before processing. But my question to you would be, if you're selling it prior to the listing agreement date, how did anybody find out about it? That's the question that the MLS is going to ask, is how did somebody find out about it? But you can, you can put it into the MLS as sold before processing. Absolutely. I hope that answers your question. So I just, going back to the form, I realized that that I was doing the wrong section. So I made a mistake. Mandatory submission. So that is if your MLS does not adopt a clear cooperation. So section 4 is where you would fill out, and that is to not market the property immediately, begin marketing on such and such a date, or to not market the property to the public during the entire listing. So so those are the two choices for you on this form. And I apologize for the confusion. I was momentarily confused myself. So, and then your seller signs this, and you don't sign it. I need to sign it as the broker. The broker needs to know what's excluded. So you send it to me electronically to exclude it from the MLS. So that is really the form that needs to be filled out. So once again, section 4, do not market the property immediately, begin marketing on such and such a date, or do not market the property to the public the entire listing period. So those are your two choices. And like I said, if you exclude it for the entire period, you can always change that with a modification of listing. But we're not done. But before I move on, I want to make sure that there's no other questions, Deborah. No, okay. So a lot of agents think, okay, I've excluded it, and you hold on to the paperwork, and then that's it. Well, that's not it, because the paperwork, first, I need to stress on everybody, new agents, old agents, DRE requires that the office has a copy of a transaction. So part or any of your fully executed paperwork. So this is a listing. The office needs to know that you have a listing. So within 2 business days, a copy of this needs to be sent to the office. How do you do that? You can upload it to command, and you've fulfilled that requirement of making sure that the office has this paperwork. Or you can send it to the MCA at your individual office. Or you can have a TC, if you work with a TC, uploaded into command. But this paperwork should be somewhere besides sitting on your computer. It should be at the office. Why? Because if we should be audited, and I'm sitting with the auditor, and the auditor points at 3 different listings saying, I want to see the paperwork for these 3 listings, I need to have that paperwork. So I need to show them that paperwork. So that's why we need to have the paperwork. So that's step 1. Make sure your office has the paperwork, whether it's an excluded listing or not. Just make sure that happens. But you also need to tell the MLS that you're excluding this. Because of clear cooperation, they need to know. So different MLSs do it differently. Now, ChrisNet, if you're a member of SRAR, ChrisNet requires you to send this completed form, the SELM, along with the first and last page of your listing agreement within 2 business days. That has to happen in order to exclude it. That is a requirement to exclude a listing. The MLS requires the exact same thing. You need to send this form, the SELM. I'm going to go down so you see it. The SELM, along with the first and last page of the listing agreement, needs to be sent to that MLS, to the MLS. The MLS, send it to compliance. Unfortunately, I can't, the chat isn't coming up, so I would normally put it in. Wait, what is this? No. Wait, here we go.
Did you get it, or you want me to type it in?
I did. No, I get it. I got it.
Okay.
Okay. So the MLS, go to compliance at MLS.com. I believe that's it. Wait, let me double check this. Hold on. Sorry. And of course, that's no reply. Yeah, that's it for the MLS. Now, SRA, our MLS or CRISNet is MLS at SRAR.com. That's where you send it for CRISNet. Now, CRMLS, also requires something totally different. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I need to hold on one sec. I'm going to hold on. Also, CRISNet, you can do this. It's optional with CRISNet, but you need to, with CRMLS, it is required that you register the listing. So let me open. Yes?
That registering of the listing happens as you are about to enter the listing with the CRMLS, correct?
Yes. I'm going to show you how you do that.
Perfect.
Yes. Wait. Now I got to find. Okay. Now let's see. Here we go. So you should be seeing the MLS, the homepage of the MLS right now. Okay, so you go to add edits, just like any other add edit, add a new, wait, where are you? See, mine is different. Wait, add new.
Yes.
Because, okay. Register listing contract. So when you add a new listing, you have a choice: residential, register, listing, contract, residential lease, all the other choices. So you're going to register the listing contract. And it's just like you're inputting a brand new listing, but it's a lot less information. All you have to do is the county and the parcel number. It's going to pull up the property, and it's also going to put up, it's also going to have the price. And you say, well, isn't that going to go out? And everybody's going to see it. It's in the MLS. Why do I have to put it in the MLS? I'm not going to go any further because I don't want to add anything, but it's not. It's only seen by you, the agent, and me, the broker. Those are the only people who see it. So if you have a CRMLS listing, it must be registered if it is excluded, and that must happen within 2 business days of the start date of your listing. So it's really, really important. And the other thing I wanted to tell you about is when does the listing start? A lot of people think it's the date that you have it starting on the contract. Well, it's not. That's not necessarily true, because if you have it starting, today's what, the 11th. If you have your listing starting the 11th, but you don't get all the signatures until, say, the 13th, your listing actually starts on the 13th. So that's really important to remember, that it's
So
the, go ahead.
So the date, like we have our listing contract, and on that first page in the upper left, it gives a date, which is the date prepared. And then there are the two lines that your listing agreement begins on this date and ends 6 months later, whatever that date
Right.
is. So if that date is May 11th, but they don't sign it until the 13th, it really doesn't start till the 13th, even though the contract says the 11th.
That's correct. It's
Okay.
the date, it's the later, the
Last date.
latest date that anybody has signed.
Got it.
So,
And
so
if you have two
that
different
is it.
signers and they sign on different days,
Correct.
we go with that latest date.
Right, exactly. That's exactly. So don't make the mistake, if you don't get it signed until like the 13th, and but you had it dated the 11th, don't put it in the MLS as starting on the 11th, because you
You'll be
might
late.
be hit up for late listing, late submission. I've had that happen a lot with agents. They've gotten a ding, violation, and I said, well, hey, what happened? And it's like, well, I didn't really get it signed until this date. And I said, well, send me the contract. And so I see the date that everybody signed it. So I went back to the MLS and I said, look, he didn't get it signed until this date. So really, he put in the wrong starting date. And so they said, okay, and they removed the violation. So, but just don't make that mistake. I mean, yeah.
And I
So,
think you touched on this, but I just want to confirm, because I've had this question a couple times. I've come to you more than once, but when we are, we're not entering it in the MLS for whatever reason, we're not going to put it into coming soon yet. We're delaying entering that into the MLS. We need the SELM and we register it. And then it will eventually go. How long can it stay registered? Just to the date that we select?
no, I mean, it can stay the entire time of the listing. It can be excluded for the entire time of the listing. Or
Okay.
you can establish a date within the MLS as to when, your back to the SALM, your seller said, I wanted to go on the market on such a date. You can put that date in, and that will be the date that it will go live or active. So
Could you do the delay and coming soon? Like delay, then followed by coming soon? Does it give
yes,
you
you
that
can
option?
exclude it, and it can
Mhm.
either go into coming soon or it
Or
can go into active.
okay.
But remember, once it's coming soon, it can only stay into coming soon for 21 days. Once it's out of coming soon, it can never go back to coming soon. So remember that
You can
also.
shorten that coming soon if you want. You can't extend.
Sure, yes. Can't be any more than 21 days, but it can be shorter. Now, CRMLS, you can't show on coming soon. Now, ChrisNet, you can show on coming soon. So that's why it's very confusing, and they're trying to kind of normalize between MLSs what the rules are, but they're not having much luck, I'm afraid to say. Because every area thinks that they're doing it right. And, and
Yeah.
especially Northern California, San Francisco area, they said, well, it could be months that it's incoming soon. It's like, why would it be
Yeah. Why would you do
months? Why would you do that? Oh, it takes months to prepare something. It's like,
that? Right.
I don't get it, but
Well, and this morning or earlier, we had a class for Claw that has a new privacy,
yes,
which none of the other MLSs have just yet,
correct.
and may or may not get it. But my understanding was it's for properties that do not want to disclose their address, and so you would put it under the privacy without the address.
Correct. It is a system within their system, and it doesn't show the address or anything.
Got it.
Yeah,
For those
yeah. I've seen that. They tried to do this once before. Santa Barbara does the same thing. They have their own thing. Santa Barbara does things differently than
many
anybody else.
celebrities
Yes. So, so yeah.
Rich did that when he sold his place. He put it under privacy.
Yeah. So that's really, that's how you exclude a listing. That's not that difficult, but you do really have to make sure that you get the paperwork in, because you don't want to get dinged for that. It's really important that you know that you cannot promote it outside of your office, because the minute you do, it has become public marketing. You know, if you blast it on, oh, I'm going to put it on KW shares. The minute you do that, there's other brokerages on there, and that's public marketing. So it cannot be public marketed. So, anybody have any questions? I don't see any.
So recap, the reason you want to do an exclusion could be a variety of reasons. It could pertain to prepping the property. Seller needs more time, but you want to, go ahead and secure the listing with getting the signatures and so forth, but you aren't ready to show. So
Correct.
You're going to exclude it for whatever day the seller thinks they're going to be ready. Now, one thing that, and please correct me if I'm incorrect, I know with the CRMLS, we can extend our exclusion if we need more time. And if we do that, we have to submit a new date for that extension before it expires.
You have to submit a new date, but I think it's sufficient that you submit, well, for CRMLS, they don't require any paperwork. So you should be able to just extend it, if you want, but you should have the paperwork to back it. So I would do a modification, a listing saying seller extends exclusion until such and such a date, so that you have that paper. If somebody, questions you, then you have that paperwork to back it up. So, yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Nobody has any questions?
I guess not.
I know. Go get those listings. Don't exclude them, because we need sellers.
Yes. Yeah.
But now you know how to exclude it should you need
Now
to.
you know how to exclude it. Yes.
Right. Rich, always a wealth of information. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
And for your sharing. And if we don't have any questions, we're going to call it a day.
All right.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks,
Happy
guys.
selling.
Bye.
Bye.